everybody. Welcome to Jennifer's Open Book, where we don't believe in filters. I am Jennifer. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about this question that a lot of us have. The question is, why am I blind? What is the issue? How did I get this way? Why do I have to go through this? And I'm speaking to you from a visually impaired person's perspective, but even sighted people, everyone has had moments, these why me moments. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But before I get into that, hit your subscribe button, share the video, hit the like button, and leave me some comments if you want to leave me some comments. Also, if you have any questions for me, find me on Facebook under Jennifer Jennelle. It's JINNERFER. JINNELLE. Make sure you spell it right so you can find me. So that being said, I'm going to jump right into it. Why me is the question. Why am I blind? How did I get to this point? I've asked myself this question before because I grew up the only blind person in my family, as far as I know. No one else had a visual impairment, and I couldn't understand how I ended up with it. It didn't start off that way. A lot of blind people I noticed go through different phases. We go through that. The first phase as a child that I went through, not going to say we. As a child, I went through, I had to, I felt, I want to say excited. Not excited about being blind, but excited about learning something new. I was born with a rare form of retinitis pigmentosa that was only seen in textbooks until the doctors looked at me and actually saw it. So I kind of acted as sort of a guinea pig all my life, and that kind of bothered me. But when I was a little girl, I had to start learning Braille when I was 8 years old. And it was exciting. It was something new. It was like, yay, I'm learning Braille. Like, I get a new Braille writer, and I learn how to type, and I can feel these bumps, and this is how I can read. And then I had to learn how to use a cane when I was 10 years old. I'm going to tell you, mobility is terrifying, okay? But it's exciting to learn how to do something new. But once it dawned on me that I had to learn these things, not that I was just doing something new and fun and exciting, but this is something that I have to learn because I can't see. I started going through sort of a depression, which a lot of us go through that. And we still go through it, even though sometimes most of the time we're okay, but sometimes we can still go through that deep depression. And I was depressed because I couldn't see. I couldn't go outside and play with the other kids at the time. And it was just like really depressing. And then kids can be cruel. When I got into junior high, I got picked on a lot because I couldn't see, because someone would see me run into something or feeling my way around something. They didn't allow us to use our canes in school back then. So we had to feel our way through the school. So I had a really hard time. And what helped me through that was a teacher, Miss Barkley. She was my 7th and 8th grade homeroom teacher. She looked at me one day. I was crying because a little boy had been picking on me. And she looked at me and she said, listen, you're going to need to stop crying. You have to get thick skin. Somebody's going to mess with you your whole life. And it's not just because you're blind. People are going to mess with you because you're pretty, because you're smart. People are always going to bother you. So you need to get thick skin and quit crying all the time. When she said that to me, I was 12 years old. I was going through puberty. And my first thought was, this be right here. I instantly got angry. So then I went through my angry phase. I was mad because I was blind. I was mad because I had to deal with these people. I was angry about my life. That was actually a short-lived phase for me, thankfully. And I think I dealt with it pretty well. But what kind of helped me get out of it was I started doing things. A teacher, one of the teachers in the same school, asked me if I wanted to join the drill team. My first answer was, no, how am I going to join the drill team and I can't see? She says, I don't want to hear that. Now, this teacher had no experience with dealing with visually impaired people, but she took me in as a project, I want to say. Her name was Mrs. Owens. I love Mrs. Owens. I remember my teachers because I had great teachers. Shout out to all of the wonderful teachers who actually care about their students. So Mrs. Owens was in charge of the drill team. And what she would do is she would show me the steps with my hands. She would show me with my hands how I was supposed to move my feet. And I learned that as long as you kept in step, you don't have to worry about being out of line. So I was on the drill team for 3 years. I went to school in Florida and I was on a drill team. When I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio, I joined the flag team. So this gave me some confidence, joining the drill team. It gave me something to focus on and it gave me some confidence. And that actually put me over into my next phase, the phase I like to call the Yo Mama phase. This is the phase that I went through in high school. And it may be the reason that I am so bold and blunt now. My motto on this channel is that we don't believe in filters, because filters did nothing but gave me potential ulcers. Holding back and not saying how I felt made me sick. I just let people run all over me and talk to me any kind of way. And then it literally made me sick to my stomach. I had to go to the hospital and get pills for it and everything. Like, I'm not just saying it made me sick. It literally made me sick. So I got rid of the filter in high school. So I call it Yo Mama phase because somebody would say something to me like, oh, that blind girl just ran into the wall. And I would say something like, I ran into the wall because I was distracted by that ugly vibe I was getting from your direction. But it don't matter how ugly you are because you ain't as half as ugly as your mama is. So I went through the Yo Mama phase. Like, I had a bunch of Yo Mama jokes. And I probably had a couple of fights too. But that's okay. That was okay. So going into adulthood, I had to just I'm trying to fit in, and I'm still, falling into my depression because I'm still feeling like I'm not able to do what people my age were doing and, enjoy things the way that I should enjoy things. It wasn't until recently that I realized that my life affected other people's life positively. And that helped me tremendously. I never knew these things until I started thinking about it. I really started paying attention to what was going on around me. And it made me think back on things like when in my English class in high school, instead of writing a paper on Helen Keller, my English teacher had me come and give a presentation on how I got around school and how I did my schoolwork, and I demonstrated some Braille and walking with a cane. And after I did that for the first time, I heard a girl walk out of my class and say, I better not catch anybody messing with her. And I was like, wow, she was paying attention and she felt protective of me. That was a great thing. And after I did that for my class, my teacher asked me if I wanted extra credit. I lied when I said I remember all of my great teachers' names because I cannot remember this man's name, but he was a really cool teacher. But I told him, sure, I love extra credit. He said, can you come and talk to a class later on? So I did that for about a week in his class. And then the senior English teacher, she asked me to come to her class. So it started from there. That's when it began for me. And then I started when I graduated, my sister had me come to her class. And for her extra credit, instead of her writing a paper on Helen Keller, she brought her blind sister in. And I did a presentation for her class. She got an A in that class. And I just kind of started noticing how people were reacting positively about something that I thought was really negative. My brother, he went to the Navy, and while he was in boot camp, he couldn't come home for Christmas. So he spent Christmas with a family, and that family had a blind daughter. Now, at this point, I'm a full-grown adult. I had my own apartment, I had a job and everything. So their daughter was about 15 years old, and he said that she sat on the ottoman the whole time, and she rocked, and she asked her parents to get her some water, and she asked them to go get her some cookies, and they would jump up every time she wanted something and bring it to her. And he finally asked them, why are you doing that? Why can't she go in the kitchen and get her own water and her own cookies? And they told him, well, she's blind. He said, my sister is blind. She has a job. She has her own apartment. She cooks. She cleans up. That girl can get up and go get her own cookies. And I don't know how that turned out. And my brother doesn't have a filter either. This might be something that runs in my family, mostly on the Strother side. I don't think the Johnsons have filters either, though. But I'm telling you these stories because I want you to understand that your life, what you see as something negative, someone else is seeing as something positive. After I got my baby, I did a motivational speaking seminar at a natural hair show. And I probably had about 10 people in the room, which works for me because people are able to ask me questions when I'm in front of a small crowd, and I love to answer questions. So some people were asking me questions about how I take care of my baby and how I move around, how I get around the city. And at the end of the class, I blindfolded a lady who was sitting in the front row, and I gave her my cane, and I told her to just kind of try to walk around the room. And she made it halfway around the room before she took the blindfold off, and she turned around and she said, you know what? You are amazing. And when everybody walked out of this room, they felt really good about their future. And the title of that seminar was, I'm Not Afraid of the Dark. You cannot be afraid. We have no choice in the matter of us being blind. We have no choice in a lot of things. You just have to face it and go out there. If you live in fear, you'll just stay locked up all the time, and nothing will happen for you, and it's not going to do anything but get worse. So you can't live in fear. And again, it took me a while to get to this point, but now I'm here, and I can tell you that there isn't much that I'm afraid of. I'm not going to say I'm not afraid of anything, because spiders freak me out, bees freak me out, stuff like that. But there's not much that I'm afraid of at all. I'm going to tell you one last story. It's a story it was one of the first Bible stories that I was told. It was about a blind man who sat on the side of the road. People have been telling me this story all of my life. And they've been telling me this story for one reason, but I got something else out of it. So there was a blind man on the side of the road, and Jesus was coming by, and he would holler out. He was hollering out to Jesus and asking him to help him, asking him to save him. And the disciples rebuked him and told him to be quiet. And Jesus stopped, and he asked the man what he wanted. And the man wanted to be able to see. So Jesus, and I'm paraphrasing this story, I don't know it like word for word, but Jesus healed him. He healed his eyes. He spat in some dirt, took the mud, rubbed it on his eyes. He prayed for him. The man's eyes were healed. The man went into, let's call it church. And the question was, why was this man blind? Was it because he sinned or because his parents sinned? The answer was, this man was blind so that God can get the glory. Now, I told you that story because people always told me this story because they wanted my eyes to be healed in their church. This is why pastors always told me this story. They would tell this story and then they would put their hands on me and they would pray for me, and they'll step back and they'll say, "What do you see?" And I'll say, "Nothing." And it wasn't because I didn't believe. I totally believe. I'm very faithful. I'm a Christian and I'm very faithful. So they'll come back and they'll pray again and they'll step back and they'll say, what do you see? And I'll say, "Nothing." And at one point, a pastor did tell me that I need to have more faith. So me not being able to see was my fault to him because he prayed for me. This is not, don't let anybody tell you that either. That has nothing to do with it. God works the way that God works. Okay? Everything that I do, I told you that I'm a very faithful Christian. Every step that I take, everything that I do is because God helps me through all of these things. I literally walk by faith, not by sight. I have my own place. I work. I have a child that I take care of, a 5-year-old who has never been to the emergency room. Very healthy. We live a healthy and happy life. And that's because I believe my faith. So my answer to you about why I'm blind is so that God can get the glory. Prayerfully, that helps you find your way. I know that people have different beliefs, and that's fine. But I want you to find your way. Find your answer. Find the answer that helps you. My life is for the glory of God. Yours might be for the glory of something else. But find the positive in your negative. Don't stay stuck in one spot. Live your life. Don't let being blind, being deaf, being crippled, being in a wheelchair, I'm not sure the politically correct way of saying that, being handicapped, being overweight, being underweight, feeling not that you are beautiful. I don't care what anybody says. Look in the mirror and tell yourself every day, whether you can see yourself or not, tell yourself that you are beautiful. But whatever you feel is your darkness, the negative part about you that you've been focusing on up until this point, stop focusing on that. Stop turning that into something negative and turn it into something positive. I live my life every day, and this affects the people that I'm around. They are so happy to see me coming and walking with my cane and taking my daughter out to the bus. I always felt like this is my everyday thing. This is nothing. And my mother is like, "You need to write a book." And I'm like, but it's so boring. All I do is my daily thing. It's no big deal. But no, you can't think like that. What you do can motivate someone else to be greater. I've motivated people to get out, sighted people. They've been afraid to just go out and try something different. And just by watching me going out and trying something different, they did it. I went on a zip line. There was somebody afraid to go on a zip line. And they can see, and I'm like, I'm going. They're like, she's going, I'm going to go. Don't do anything crazy. And I'm not saying like, jump off the bridge after your friends. But just don't live your life in fear. We weren't given the spirit of fear. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Join me sometime on Third Eye Visions with Anthony Parker. He has made me his co-host, so I get to help him host some of his shows with him. He interviews some of the most awesome people you will ever meet. So until next time, I said what I said. I meant what I said. I love you.
Tape pick. Start burst capture.